Wednesday on the Fan. We're running it back from last week with tickets to Wild Canucks, April 2nd. Just use the iHeartRadio app, send us a talkback. Tell us who scores first for the Wild against the Panthers tomorrow night. Full details, KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Top of the hour, 4 o'clock hour of the program that will include a visit with John Bream in little less than 30 minutes. Top 5 at 5 yet to come. Kessler will join beginning at about 5:30 tonight. I'll throw this out to the text line. If you have been at our airport, of course, the greatest airport in the world, highly decorated, and I'm not being sarcastic about that at all. It merits much of the acclaim that it has tended to receive the last so many years. What has your experience getting to the gate been like, getting through security? The perception that is persisting is that if national news outlets are looking for video, for visual representation of the madness during the shutdown, that the unwritten rule is don't bother looking for live video out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, because it just doesn't exist to the extent that it does in many, many other airports around the country. Is that still the case? We have a lot of travelers, I know. We have a very mobile listenership. 64686 about what your travel experience just here has been like. Because there are a number of places nationally where it looks nightmarish at times. Now, I thought I read a story this morning or maybe heard a report indicating, but it was just a tease of a headline, so I don't know what I didn't stick around for the payoff, suggesting that we might be closer to finally a deal on the Senate side, which might ease the pain for those who, of course, work the lines. So it may be even a subject that we will explore a little bit with Kessler as well. But let me know what that's been like, because our guy, Kyle Potter, had, I think it was yesterday, a tweet that seemed to indicate all quiet on the Western Front, at least relatively speaking, compared to other places. So how are we pulling that off exactly? Are we just better at it? We like to think we are in every area, except for fraud. But what do we know? What's our secret? Are fewer people, not working, going ahead and working regardless of what their conditions are and what the paycheck situation is? I'm not disparaging it. Believe me, if somehow we're getting it done in a way that it's not being done elsewhere, I have no problem with us patting ourselves on the back for that. I'm just curious to find out what experience people have had. And, part of the misleading images nationally, sometimes when you see some of the lines, you go, well, there would be lines like these this time of year around spring break regardless. So you got to have, I think, better reporting to attempt to underscore, well, this is about the shutdown. This is about cutbacks. Because in some cases, I think we're learning. I saw a line that was like out the airport door through a Marriott near I think it was the Philadelphia airport. And somebody pointed out that, well, that airport historically has been notorious for long lines, no matter what the working conditions might be. So that might be some of it as well. 64686, Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line. A lot of people have speculated, well, but if it goes on too long, it'll end up inevitably getting worse here as well. Maybe we've figured something out. I don't know. I'm not sure. A lot of good texts are coming in on this very controversial subject. Dan, I flew out of MSP yesterday at 7 in the morning. I was through standard TSA. Oh, let me scroll down here. I was through standard TSA in less than 10 minutes. When I came back at 8 p.m. last night, only the South Security checkpoint was open, and it was 10 minutes on the board. I was in Atlanta on Sunday, and it was over 4 hours to get through. 612 guy, my daughter flew out of Terminal 1 yesterday at noon, got there about 9:30 a.m. and got through security in 5 to 10 minutes. I got a lot of them coming in here quickly. Dan, leaving on a trip to the Cancun area tomorrow. Some members in her group left today and said it took 45 minutes to check a bag at Sun Country, but only 10 minutes to get through security. This was at Terminal 2. Mo from Wrigleyville in Chicago, formerly of Uptown, Minneapolis. Interesting that he brings up Uptown. There's a story, StarTribune.com, on the continuing effort to revitalize what has become a disaster, Uptown, Minneapolis, for way too long. I flew out of MSP this past Sunday, was worried, got to the airport 2 hours early. It took me literally 5 minutes through security. So I sat at my gate for 2 hours before my flight. Regarding airport travel, I flew today. Very long line when I arrived at LaGuardia at 5 a.m. Took 20 minutes to get through TSA pre-check with touchless ID. Arrived at MSP about 10 a.m. When I was leaving, I noticed the TSA wait time sign said less than 5 minutes. 563 guy, been to MSP with the line reaching out to check in, but it only took 15 minutes max to get through. This is not a scientific poll, but this is all very encouraging. It all seems to offer up the same message that we're better than any place else. Sick call rate at MSP, 6%. Atlanta and Houston, gun belt tight, 45%. We're just more dedicated. Flew out of MSP on Monday morning, dropped off at 5:45 a.m., checked a bag, and I was through pre-check security by 6:05. Flying home from Houston today, local and national news had me worried. Reports of 4-hour waits, but under 2 hours this morning at 6:30. But that's still considerably more. We just took a trip to San Diego. 15, 20 minutes to get through security at Terminal 2. It took about 40 minutes in California. Flew out a week ago Saturday. Took me 5 minutes, 28 seconds. Yeah, I timed it. That's all good. That seems to confirm what online, because online's a dangerous place, right? We all, I think, have figured that out the hard way. The assumption that because we see certain things online and visuals online, are the pictures accurate? Are they AI generated? Do they tell an incomplete picture? 612 guy writes, I went through security at 7 a.m. Saturday the 14th. Airport was very busy with spring breakers. Lots of families with kids that clearly did not know how to navigate the airport. Understandable for this time of year. But I was through the pre-check line in less than 10 minutes. Looks like regular security then would be less than 15.
I think if we've learned anything through these texts, pre-check seems to be the way to go.
Pre-check, that's true, but what they're also attempting to do is look at what the scoreboard says regarding even normal travel to get through security, and it doesn't. It didn't sound like that those numbers were daunting, and it didn't sound like you could just visually see an endless line of people. My daughter flew out of Terminal 1 yesterday at noon, got there about 9:30 a.m., got through security in about 5 to 10 minutes. So that's all good. Dan, I left Atlanta after the tsunami. It was an hour and 45 minutes to get through TSA at 4:30 a.m. So it feels so far as if it has been relatively normal here. Another feather in the cap of an airport that continues to very deservedly get raves for service get raves for options to eat, options to shop, the whole bit. Very understandable. All right, let's get a quick pause in here. I got a couple of other items I want to discuss. Not particularly controversial, but I think interesting ones as well. And then we'll prepare to talk music, primarily Dylan and Springsteen, two heavyweights that our 4:30 guest, John Bream, has been covering for basically half a century. He joins at the bottom of the hour.
Never miss your chance to know what the latest sports news is in town, chances to win tickets, or just want to know what's going on with all your favorite KFAN shows. You can follow KFAN 1003 on all of our social channels like Instagram, TikTok, and X. You can stay connected and follow the leader for all sports that matter, the Fan.
How does your guy Gus Bus screw up that carom last night? That annoyed me.
It was bad.
That's not supposed to happen at the professional level, is it?
You score a goalie goal one year, you mess up a routine play the next.
Yeah. And again, the final score looked like it was this massive blowout. It was at that point after that goal, that's what made it 4-3, and then it's two open netters, right? Empty netters, I should say. And
after a really dumb Hartman penalty down one goal.
That's a good point too. Yeah, that's fair to say. I did not like that. I mean, I see that kind of play when you're seeing like 12-year-olds play hockey. As in the goal where you go, well, what are you young yet? They're still figuring it out. They can barely know how to move with the pads, whatever. That part surprised me. Beyond that, anything else catch your eye in last night's setback?
To me, if you're a box score reader, they got blown out. What are they even doing down there? Where it really wasn't that way. In fact, the first period was all wild. I mean, they dominated on the scoreboard. They dominated with the fisticuffs. I mean, it was all Christmas colors. And then it slowly starts to get away. They get a really easy power play goal where there's Gensel is kind of one of us screening Gus for free on the power play. Yeah. No one getting. And then, the Gus Bus thing happens. But it just drives me crazy where you're down a goal, you're still in it, there's a few minutes left to play.
Yes.
And you just take, if there's ever a stupid frustration, dumb, avoidable penalty, it's either 38 or 17 every time. And it happens again.
What was with all the fisticuffs?
I don't know. To be honest, I have no idea. But I mean, they start going.
Are they just bored?
That's what they got him for. That's what McCarron screwed up Corey Perry, probably the most he's ever been in his career with his face. And there's another guy that went off for repairs too during the Nick Foligno. Yeah. The only time I really went, was when the Kachuk brothers fought the Canadians. That got me on my feet. Right. It's fine, but it doesn't really do it for me. A great goal doesn't matter.
All right. Do you have a notebook in front of you and a pen?
Sure.
All right. I want you to take down these numbers, okay?
Okay.
0, 1, 0, 0, and 1. What do all those zeros and ones add up to total?
2.
0. So that's the total number of points for your guy Kaprizov in the last 6 games. Actually, I guess it would be the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. The one before that, he had one of each against Utah. That was a 5-0 rout. But before that, a goal. Before that, nothing. No goals or assists. So, is that a too small a sample size to be a little bit worried about whether we're seeing the best of what we think Kirill has to be for us to be the team we want to be?
I think so. I think it's. I mean, there are guys that aren't producing on this team as much as they should be. In that 5, we got worried about the 5-game losing streak or skid that they had at home. So if that's not too small of a sample size, then you would think this wouldn't be for Kaprizov. I'm just not. I just know how good of a player he is, and he's got a lot of equity with the point total this year that I'll let it slide.
Okay, I'm just asking.
But I'm sure there are people out there that are not thrilled with that.
I mean, for the month of March, what's the date today? 25?
25th.
So for the month of March, he's got 5 goals and 2 assists, 7 points. That seems light to me.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I think he missed 3
Yeah,
games.
that's true.
But even so, that's still a little on the low.
Seems a little on the light. So I would say it's not anything to panic over, but I think it's something to watch and pay attention to and say, well, we know we're going to have to get, even though I know we're deeper than we were before, we got a lot, in general, we score more easily. Have a great power play now. It still is, I think, bears worth watching a little bit.
Maybe it's time we've been shuffling the lines and we separated Hughes and Faber. Maybe it's time we start giving him a little help. That's not, I know we love Zuccarello, but Ryan Hartman's not, that number one center that's going to carry the team into the future. So.
The Kaprizov apologists are coming, including Matt. I'm sure you realize that Kaprizov has been playing hurt for 2 weeks. I don't know how to break it to you. First of all, that's rich coming from the hockey community, which does nothing but whine about any excuses ever being offered to basketball players when they're hurt. He may be hurt, but if that's part of what is going on now, is he going to get better? All I'm saying is, I'm not here to cast aspersions on his manhood or his character, but I'm saying that the production is going to have to get better, whatever the reasons that are contributing to this situation. Because let's be honest about something. He was hurt a lot last year, and you can again say, well, it wasn't like he was faking the injury, and I would say I agree. But the cliche applies in hockey just like it does in every other sport. The most important ability is availability, and so if we're just going to write it off as, well, he's been kind of hurt, so therefore that's where he's at, that doesn't then have to be a criticism of him, but it has to be an observation worth paying attention to if we have a diminished player, in part because he's not healthy. And how long will that go on? We're getting to the end here.
In that case, then if that were to be true, and it's very possible it is, then you need to be sitting them like they were, because these games are borderline irrelevant. Now,
you're 100% right.
If they would have won those 3, bottom feeder games, we could be in a battle for home ice.
That's true.
It's not really looking like the case. Sure, it could happen, and maybe Dallas falls off a cliff and we get home ice, but it's Dallas in the first round no matter what. So I actually think they should be cycling some guys in and out. But again,
100%. We talked about this yesterday. You're not going anywhere at this point. You could call it a form of load management. I'd say this would be permissible load management under these conditions. Even if the ticket buyer, again, who was going to see Kaprizov that night, goes, wait a minute, I want to see Kaprizov. You go, well, we're at the point of the year where I think most fans will accept that trade-off. And the trade-off is have your best players as healthy as humanly possible once the games really matter again in the postseason. And if indeed he's hurt, this isn't the time to be a hero. This is a time, as you say, to sit him and to give him the best chance to be as healthy as possible.
Agreed.
Not that difficult.
Now, I will, to be a Kaprizov apologist, duckies and bunnies, do you like parades? He is 7th in goals in the NHL. Right. He's 13th in points. This season has been great.
It has been
when
great
he's been
overall.
there. But as of late, I would start looking at different line mates if I were John Hines.
You're going to mix it up a little bit.
Well, if not now, when? Yeah. That would be my question.
Okay, well, you got time to do that, too.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk popular music. How about that? John Bream has been covering music at the Star Tribune forever, half a century, if not longer. And I was thinking about him today because I noted he had a concert review of a Bob Dylan event in Duluth, I believe. And then he also got an exclusive interview with Bruce Springsteen, who is coming back to town as well. So we'll get into both of those subjects and who knows what else. If you have questions for Mr. Bream of the Star Tribune, Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is, as always, available to you at 64686. 64686. Back in.
The tournament is underway. Don't miss a second of the action. You can tune in 96.7 KFAN Plus and on the free iHeartRadio app for all the hoops coverage. It's driven by Dave Smith Motors.
I mentioned anybody has questions or observations for Star Tribune music critic John Bream, hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 64686. Don't forget, Kessler will join in about 1 hour. Top 5 at 5 yet to come as well. John, can you explain what your beef is with Bob Dylan?
I don't have a beef with him. I have a beef with the way he handled last night's performance in Rochester. Kind of, maybe unprofessionally is the word. He didn't consistently sing into the 2 microphones that he had. And this is a problem. This is the 3rd night of the tour. Fans were complaining on fan websites, on social media, the first 2 nights. You would think his crew would pick up on this and address this issue.
Do you think it's as simple as intimidation factor? Do you think there are individuals simply afraid to state the obvious? Because you can't get any more fundamental than what you were talking about.
No, I don't think his crew is intimidated by him. I think he probably doesn't see it as a problem.
Well, that's a problem.
You know, he can hear what he's singing, but maybe the audience can't. I mean, when your mouth is more than 10 inches away from the microphone, it's very difficult to hear you singing, unless you've got a really loud voice.
Yeah.
And, at this point, he doesn't have a really loud voice.
Was it?
Although, when you heard him, his singing was very good.
It was good when you could hear him. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nuanced. It was forceful. He was engaged. No complaints, except for the fact that, on 4 of the songs, you could barely hear him, and that was 1/4 of the evening right there.
Yeah, that's it. Now, was it apparent enough that people around you were muttering about it? I mean, was there an undercurrent of frustration that was easily detected?
I don't think so, but I was sitting on the main floor,
okay,
and I was close. I bought my tickets the day they went on sale, so I had pretty good seats. I talked to one person who was in the balcony for the concert afterwards, and he said it was quiet, Bob, and that it was. It was an acoustic show except for his electric piano.
I'm trying to scroll,
which is unusual for Bob. To usually he plays a baby grand piano, and the guitarists play electric guitar. Well, the guitarist played acoustic guitar, and he played electric piano. And on the previous tours, when he played the grand piano, there was no problem with the microphone.
Interesting. Now, you wrote he did also, like you say, he apparently refreshed things, right? There was not as you write, the seemingly set in concrete set list for the last for the last 3 years.
I mean, he'd been playing basically the same 16 or 17 songs for the last 3 years. And he was doing, it's the Rough and Rowdy Ways tour, which started in November of 2021 in Milwaukee. And he's been doing 9 of the 10 songs from that album. It's a great album, but, it's the same thing over and over. And he's got, an immensely deep catalog. Well, this time he only did 6 songs from Rough and Rowdy Ways. So he added a couple more oldies and a couple of covers.
When is the last time you interviewed Bob Dylan?
The last time I talked to Bob Dylan was in the late 80s, I would say,
wow,
early 90s maybe.
What was that circumstance?
Well, I when he was going to play the Metrodome, I went out to crashed backstage at one of his shows in Berkeley. He was playing 2 nights, so I thought, okay, I'll go the first night and see if I can connect with him. And I ran into a guy backstage who I knew. Everything is networking.
Sure.
A guy who'd worked with Morris Day, and I ran into him. I said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" He says, "I'm Bob Dylan's tour accountant." And I said, "Can you take me to Bob? He knows me." And he says, "Ooh." He said, "I'll tell you what, I'll walk you by the dressing room, and then you're on your own." I go, "Fine." So he walks me by the dressing room, and I stand in an open doorway, and the bodyguard comes out, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm John Bream from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune." And Bob looks up and goes, "John, come on in." So, we hung out for 2 days.
Really?
And, yeah.
Well, did he give you, what do you remember? I mean, did he give you all kinds of good, free-flowing stuff? What was that like?
No, we just hung out.
Oh.
When I pulled out the tape recorder, he said, "Put away the tape recorder. I don't want to do that." So we just talked and hung out and talked music and talked sports. And, the next day I rode to the gig with him, and we're getting in the van to ride over there. And he says, "You got your tape recorder?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I want to play you a cassette. Listen to the cassette. I'm recording my new album." And I said, "Well, my headphones are up in my room." So he said, "Well, go up and get them." So I'm thinking, like, wait, yesterday your manager said you don't have time for me, and now Bob's waiting for me while I go get my headphones. And when we went to the gig, we were talking about the album, and I'm standing there talking to him, and he's walking on stage. And I know where the line of demarcation is here. You don't cross it. You let him go on stage. Right. He didn't tell me where to go stand, so I stood by the soundboard. And this was San Francisco, so I'm on the side of the stage listening at the soundboard. Who's standing next to me? Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead, giving a running commentary on Dylan. So I got a sidebar with Garcia talking about Dylan and a day and a half hanging out with Dylan.
That's a good night and a half at the newspaper office, that's for sure. So when you say, for much of it, he says, put the tape recorder away, does that mean everything is off the record and you don't go back to your room and furiously try to piece together some of the conversation? Is that off limits, or how do you do that in that situation?
I just assumed everything was on the record. He just didn't want it recorded.
I gotcha.
And he didn't want to be interviewed.
He wanted a conversation with you.
My line about Dylan for years is, he wants to be put on a pedestal, but don't treat him like he's on the pedestal. He doesn't want to explain his songs, or that sort of thing. I think I asked him questions like, I wasn't taking notes or anything, but I think one of the things I asked him, I said, your songs are long, they're wordy, they don't all rhyme. How do you remember all the words to them? And he just looked at me with that Bob Dylan almost side-eye thing, and he goes, I wrote them, didn't I? If you would have seen him last night, he's got laminated pages of lyrics in a notebook that he's flipping through.
Seriously?
So maybe he wrote them back then when he was younger, he could remember them, but nowadays, like most singers, he needs his cheat sheets.
How old is Dylan?
84. 85 in May.
84, almost 85. So what would you say, you've covered him forever, what's the biggest misconception about Dylan?
Well, there's a lot of different characters in there, definitely. A lot of it is self-protection, but if you get him to take down the walls, he's a funny guy, he's a smart guy, he's obviously well-read, he's well-versed. If you just talk to him like he's quote-unquote normal, you can have a good conversation with him. It's when you start, getting into interview mode and asking questions. And I remember the first time I interviewed him in the late 70s, and it was a sit-down interview, and I felt like I was in a freshman philosophy class. You'd ask a question, and he'd answer it with a question. One of those kinds of things.
One of those deals, yeah.
So he doesn't like being interviewed. He never has. But he can be a very engaging, normal, charismatic person.
One of the things over the years that has amused me about him is, and I don't know when I've read these things, I guess in some of those interviews or at least some stories that are done, occasionally over the decades there'd be a Dylan proclamation for whatever reason in which he would basically mock and ridicule whatever meaning a given, could be a music critic, could be a rube, could be anybody, had attached to a specific song and the meaning of a song because those individuals wanted to believe that this is what it has to mean. And he could occasionally be pretty vicious, right? And basically saying, that's got nothing to do with what I was saying or what I was attempting to say. I don't want any part of it. I don't want to be a part necessarily of the movement that you think I'm obligated to be a part of. correct?
Right, yeah. I mean, he never liked being called the spokesman of the generation,
Right.
Which got labeled on him in the 60s. I mean, he was speaking for himself. And, I mean, a lot of that standoffish protectiveness is just because of the way people treated him. Even nowadays, in recent years, I mean, guys that knew him when they were kids can't get backstage. There's been times I can't get backstage. He saw the book I wrote about him, and he knew the book because I was told by an art director that he had worked with that he was picking photos from the book that I wrote in 2015. He was saying, let's use this photo for our program that we're putting out for the next tour.
That's a nice praise.
So, yeah, well,
or acknowledgement.
Wasn't direct, but
yeah. Acknowledgement. Yeah.
So, he's very protective, and the people around him are very protective of him. And I mean, it goes back to a lot of things, weird things that happened to him when he was much younger, and then you get super protective after what happened to John Lennon.
Yep.
So you just have to do it. And he's also a big family man. He always used to, I don't know if he still does this, but he would host Thanksgiving at his farm in Minnesota, and, all his kids would fly in, and they'd have big Thanksgiving dinner together.
Starting to be a music critic, John Bream is with us on the Fan. Does Bruce Springsteen dislike the interview format as much as, or make him as uncomfortable as it seems to make Dylan?
No, Bruce can, when Bruce decides to do an interview, he's very thoughtful, very patient. He does tend to speak slowly and weigh his words. But I've known him for a long time, talked to him many times. I didn't find him uncomfortable the other day when he called me.
Well, that's the transition, because you did get a nice exclusive with him talking about his song and about coming back to the Twin Cities for the weekend. Give us some highlights of the conversation.
Well, I've been trying to get an interview with him ever since he released that Streets of Minneapolis song in January. And then, I kept pressing his people, with the tour opening here. And then sort of out of the blue on Monday, I get an email from his publicist saying, Bruce will call you in the next hour. And about 2 hours later, he called just out of the blue. And we chatted. I mean, he knows who I am, which is nice. It makes it easier. I mean, he's not afraid to let his hair down with me, and we can talk like normal people and less like an interview mode. But, he talked about writing that. He talked about what it was like to perform that song in Minneapolis and how that was one of the most meaningful. He said that went to the top of the list of his most meaningful performances ever because of the timing of it. And he talked about coming here this weekend to sing at the No Kings, and then the tour that's going to start Tuesday at Target Center. And he's very familiar with Target Center. He's played there a couple times. He's promised it'll be political and it'll be topical.
You mentioned in the Q&A, you asked him about reaching out to Tom Morello, and I enjoyed part of his answer regarding feedback about the song. Bruce says it was a little more directly topical. I tend to write more nuanced, even with my political or topical songs. In this case, it was just flat out there. I never want to sound like I'm on a soapbox, but as Tom said, nuance is wonderful, and sometimes you have to kick them in the teeth. And this was one of those times. I thought that was a good answer.
Yeah, I mean, he told that story actually, a slightly different version of that story before he performed the song at First Avenue in January.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, come to think of it, I think that's right. I think I remember when we talked to you.
And I was just, trying to get a little bit more out of him. I mean, I think one of the interesting things he said was the words came to him, and then he was going to go write the music. It all just came flowing out. The words came to him, and then he was going to go write the music, but his wife went to bed. So he went to the bathroom to write the music.
So she could go to sleep. Yeah, it was too good. That was an interesting visual image for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, that just shows you how human he is.
Yeah.
And maybe the fact that he knows me, he would share that with me. Maybe he wouldn't share that with other interviewers. He certainly didn't say that at First Avenue.
No, that was I enjoyed it. It was a very good conversation. And you asked him about the age-old question about blowback, right? And I liked his in terms of reaction to taking a stand on these sorts of issues. And I liked his answer, which was, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I'm also comfortable with the blowback. I'm comfortable if somebody hates me for doing it or just, is not interested in whatever my message is. It's all, part of the deal. And he did point out too, the longer you're in it, if you're doing it right, obviously the thicker skin you're almost obligated to form in a way that, and obviously given that level of stardom and popularity, you're insulated to a certain extent anyway. But I like the way he put that. Yeah, people can think, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. People can think and then people can react however that they want to react. He seems as if he's already worked all of that out.
Right. And then the next question I asked him is, at what age did you develop this thick skin and learn to deal with it? And then he talked about how when you're young and fragile and uncertain of yourself, these become difficult. But as he got older and mature, this is the way I'm going to roll. It sounds like... And I did appreciate the fact that he said, I have my say, and then you have yours say.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's like, the First Amendment works for all of us. It doesn't just work for the creators.
Exactly.
It works for other people who want to comment about it, too.
It sounds as if the only significant concession to age he is making when it comes to reforming is that he no longer schedules back-to-backs, which we talk early and often about in the NBA. That's the extent of the Springsteen load management. He's going to show up. You're going to see him, but you might not see him on consecutive nights anymore, correct?
Yeah, no, I asked him that. I asked him, about his workout regimen, which that answer we cut out for space purposes. He just says, he lifts weights, but not as heavy as he used to, and he does some aerobic stuff. I think he does more than he was willing to own up to because, as I told him, being a rock star is a full-time job. What are you doing to stay in shape between all these things? You're not always sitting at home writing a song, that sort of thing. But he did say, the shows are a challenge for the band. I mean, I worry as much about the band like the drummer, Max Weinberg.
Yes, right.
Holy Toledo, to be up there for 3 hours doing that. And Max had heart surgery years ago.
That's true.
That to me is the big challenge. And I think Bruce can go the marathon. I worry sometimes about the other guys in the band. They're all in their, not all of them, but many of them are in their mid-70s. And what they do is incredibly physical, it's mental, and to bounce back, with only one day in between gigs is pretty amazing. And he said he did that. He said, I do it to make sure my voice is fully there and to make sure that the band is fully recharged. But they must all be in incredible shape to bounce back that quickly.
Who is in better shape, Springsteen or Jagger?
That's a fascinating question. Would we need a physiologist or a kinesiologist or what to determine that?
That's true.
It's different what they do. I mean, a guitar is a lot heavier than you think to run around for
that's a good
2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah, that's important.
But then the amount of steps that Mick Jagger does while he's dancing is incredible. I mean, I've seen videos of Mick Jagger working out, while he's not on tour. And he has to stay in shape the whole time. But, it's like I said earlier, being a rock star is a full-time job. And not all of the guys treat it that way, or all the women.
Sure.
Some people think, I can just turn the switch on and off. It doesn't work that way. You saw that happen with someone like Bob Seger, who took, I don't know, maybe it was a decade off to raise his kids. And then he came back and he couldn't do a full concert. He had to take intermission, and he had to sit down for part of the concert. Part of it was he was a smoker.
Yeah, that might have entered into it. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. But you really need to, being a performer, it's like being an athlete. You got to exercise those muscles all the time, otherwise they atrophy.
No question. A lot of texts are coming in. This is from Jeff in Minneapolis regarding Bream. He talked to Dylan about sports. Can we get a snippet of what Dylan is like as a fan? What was the sports conversation like?
He's been to Twins games and that sort of thing. Well, one of the things when I came into his dressing room there in Berkeley at the Greek Theater, he said, "What's going on back in Minneapolis?" And the first thing that popped into my mind was, well, Kevin McHale had chosen his all-Hibbing basketball team. I don't know if you remember this. One of the Star Tribune writers asked.
I heard about it.
McHale,
yep.
So his all-Hibbing basketball team was something like, I don't know, Roger Maris, Rudy Purvis, and Dylan. All these guys were from Hibbing.
That's true.
He got a kick out of that.
That's pretty good.
It was pretty funny, actually. And it was like a good icebreaker.
That is a good, for sure.
To smile and laugh.
Lighten them up a little bit, maybe loosen them up a little bit to get for you to come in for the John Bream kill. And I use that term loosely,
I never got to any John Bream kill questions. We just talked.
Yeah,
and then,
right.
You could ask some questions, like I did about the lyrics or something, just because you're having a conversation and now he's more comfortable with you hanging out and being there.
John from downtown Minneapolis wants to know your 3 favorite Dylan albums.
Well, Blood on the Tracks would be number 1. And then the others would probably change periodically.
Depending on your mood.
I do really like the Rough and Rowdy Ways, but, you got to go back to Blonde on Blonde and some of those 60s classics as well.
651 guy wants to know if you have any insight regarding whether Bob has mended ties or has a current functional relationship with his son Jacob.
I do not know. I haven't talked to Jacob in a few years.
In a long time.
Not sure what the schism is there, but
I didn't even know there was one. Is that true? Or there was at some point? Yeah.
Wasn't aware of one, but I don't spend all my time on social media.
You don't?
No.
Well,
I
your
follow
loss.
you, of course.
It's your loss. Just saying.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it keeps you sane. Maybe that's part of the Bream secret of longevity. Possible, right?
I don't know. I've never analyzed myself in that regard.
It's better that way.
Maybe Springsteen could analyze that for me.
It's possible. Next big concert you will be reviewing.
Next big one I will be reviewing.
I guess it doesn't have to be big. Lady Gaga. Okay.
Well, Bruce Springsteen, of course.
Well,
on Tuesday. After that would be Lady Gaga.
Okay. When is that?
Lady Gaga is here for 2 nights in April. She's here the 9th and the 10th.
All right. Well, maybe we'll talk to you then. Who knows? Who's to say?
And Springsteen is, of course, next Tuesday opening the tour, and that'll be pretty exciting. He opened another tour here, if you remember, 1984, the famous Born in the USA tour.
Yes, indeed. The famous...
Yeah, on the first night, he filmed the video for Dancing in the Dark, pulling Courtney Cox out of the audience.
Yeah. I was naive enough... I was going to say, I was naive enough then to think that was all spontaneous. It's sad, isn't it? Despite being already a grizzled, cynical media guy, I fell for it. I was younger then,
And so was she.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Good. She wasn't famous then.
No, I guess that's also true. You're right, relatively speaking. But sure as hell helped her become famous.
It was pretty staged. It was weird because they did the song twice.
Well, I think we've talked to people who... This has come up before on the show way back, and I think we even talked to a couple of people who were there.
I mean, I was
even
there, but I know some people that were there the day before,
right,
when they filmed the audience part. They filmed the people that were behind the stage the day before.
Gotcha.
And then the actual day of, they did it once. And then they announced, we're filming this for a video, so we're going to do the song again. And then it was pretty obvious that, Courtney Cox was the plan. He picked up pulled the same girl out of the audience, young woman out of the audience to dance with him.
One last question has come in from my buddy Bob from Barnes & Noble. What do you know about Keith Richards' workout regimen? That's the question. That's the one that we need to find out about.
I think it's just a shot of his favorite drink and a few million cigarettes.
That's it.
I don't know.
And he's going to outlive all of us.
He has more lives than anyone else. He's dodged so many bullets. He's a specimen they should probably study.
Definitely worthy of medical study at Mayo Clinic. I'm hoping he has already agreed to donate his body to science. Don't you think? Gotta be.
I think that would be smart, and maybe science would pay to have his body instead of having it donated.
Very possible. Very
pay
possible.
his estate.
Thanks for joining us as always. We'll be in touch soon. Thanks, John.
Okay. Take care.
John Bream, the music critic forever at my former newspaper, the Star Tribune. Kessler in about a half hour. Top 5 at 5. I'm assuming is going to be hockey dominant. Will it be hockey exclusive?
It will not be exclusive. It'll be Wild Review, Wolves preview, and an umpire story that proves you just got to get it right.